Alright. Alright, so today we're going to be presenting on pharmaceutical price hike led by Shkreli. Hi, my name is Eduardo.
My name's Gabe.
I'm Eduardo. How's it? So today we're going to discuss what happened with the problem and who was affected by it. Then we're going to talk about the people who investigated the problem and how it was solved. Then we're going to go into why U.S. drug prices are so high in the first place. We're going to do an analysis of media coverage and how it affected the company, the change in stock price, and then a brief narrative again.
So, just before we get into the problem at hand, just by a quick show of hands, how many of you guys have been prescribed pills or are currently still prescribed pills today? So I know I am. And how would you guys feel if these pills prices were exponentially increased overnight without consulting you? Not good, right? Yeah, I feel the same way. So basically, what happened was exactly that. So Shkreli, who's been kind of a big person in the pharmaceutical industry and just in the stock market industry as well. He's had a huge history with trading and investing and starting his own startup companies and getting shareholders to participate. So he's been around this industry. He was the head of both Turning Pharmaceuticals and Retrofin Pharmaceuticals, and he implemented a price hiking business model that exponentially increased the price of specific drugs that the company was producing. These drugs were Daraprim and Viola, and Daraprim was with Turning, and this is an anti-parasite drug, and it's also used to treat patients with AIDS and HIV, and Eduardo will elaborate on that later in the presentation. And Viola is a prescription that treats kidney stones. So these are need-based goods that he exponentially increased the price of. These prices were increased for Daraprim was August 2015, and for Viola it was May 2014. But even worse than just his companies increasing the prices, he set this big precedent in kind of a culture shift in pharmaceutical sales that allowed this huge business model to take place. So he influenced other pharmaceutical companies to kind of follow suit on what he did as far as the price hiking. And these companies were Valiant Pharmaceuticals, Mylan Pharmaceuticals, and Revelius Therapeutics. So basically what they did was implement this monopoly business model, and that's when they went out and they would buy certain patents and rights to these drugs, and they have complete ownership of them and complete control of how they set the price and how they retail it to consumers. And ultimately they influence other leaders in the pharmaceutical industry as well. And this was a huge problem for not only consumers but other members in the healthcare industry. And Eduardo will also elaborate on that later in the presentation. So this is just a couple visuals to show kind of the significance of the price increases. So here you have for Daraprim, he initially in 2013 it was valued at $13.50 a pill, and then in 2015 he hiked it up to $7.50 a pill. And then for Isopropyl and Nitropress, which are both Valiant drugs, they followed suit too as well in 2015 by increasing their price per fill for Isopropyl from $215 to about $1,300, and over here from $250 to $800. And if you focus your attention to the chart, you can see the actual percentage of increase, and these numbers are in the 5,000, 2,000 range, which is just extremely exponential, and Eduardo will explain that had really negative ramifications going forward for the industry. So, likewise, he was not really greeted with the friendliest response to this. A lot of people, consumers mainly, the public was outraged. Members in the healthcare industry were outraged, including doctors and public health officials, and more importantly, people in the U.S. government were also outraged. So kind of notable responses to this was one from Senator Claire McMaskill, and she was quoted saying, "The hedge fund model of drug pricing is predatory and immoral for the patients and taxpayers who ultimately foot the bill, especially drugs that can be made for pennies." So, like I mentioned before, his margins are absolutely insane, and the money that it costs to go into actually manufacturing these pills is a fraction of what he's retailing them for. And also another notable person who commented on this was Hillary Clinton, and she issued a tweet saying, price gouging like this in this specialty drug market is outrageous. Tomorrow they plan to take it on. So basically he got the attention of a lot of the members in the US government and in the public health industry, and that created kind of a stir. So Shkreli's justification, basically Martin Shkreli justifies this move by saying he's just a capitalist and that he owes it to his investors and shareholders as well. They expect him to maximize his profits, and in kind of a capitalist society today, he was just taking advantage of really an opportunity. Many people also see it as kind of immoral, but I mean technically, judging for what it really is, it is a good. He treated it like any other good on the stock market, and he kind of saw the opportunity to make a lot of money. So there's a couple quotes from Martin Shkreli I'd like to point out. He said, "That's the main mission, which was to raise the price to have it generate revenue. Everybody's doing it. In capitalism, you try to get the highest price you can for a product, and my investors expect me to maximize profits." So basically, he's kind of separating, his moral code and treating this situation pretty objectively. And, what we have a problem with is how he separates that this is a need-based product versus just any other product. But we'll elaborate on that later in the presentation as well. So for you guys, I have problems pressing. For you guys, I have a question, and I just want to create, a brief discussion amongst you guys really quick. Do you see this as a good business practice, or is this morally unjust? And our opinion will be reflected later on in the presentation, but for right now, I'd love to hear a quick opinion from you guys. So just, couple hands. Feel free. Riley, what do you got going?
I think it's both. I mean, it's definitely morally unjust. Like, specifically the doxycycline graph that you showed, like, was prescribed that drug like last year, and it went from $20 to over $1,000, which is absolutely crazy.
So your annual expenses are like
right, it was ridiculous. But also, it's like, it is a good business practice. I mean, it sucks, especially for the HIV and AIDS drug. Like, that's something that like people really need, and the kidney stone, things like that. Like, I can cancel my doxycycline prescription and I'm not gonna die. You know what I'm saying? But it's scary. I mean, it does generate a lot of revenue for him and his companies and shareholders, but it's bad for it's unjust for the people taking it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Does anyone else have anything quick before we move on? No? Okay.
So, why are the U.S. drug prices so high? In most every other country in the world, this is not something that happens. And the real reason for that is the way our U.S. government regulates these companies. They really don't. The only thing that is in place is the FDA, which is really just there to make sure the drugs are safe. And the FDA takes a very long time to approve new drugs. So say you go into CVS and you want to get some Advil, you see Advil, ibuprofen, you see the CVS brand, they're all the same thing, but they have different prices because they're able to, there's the name brand and then there's the generic no name brand. With these big specialty drugs, it takes so long for them to be approved, and it is very expensive to be approved, that no other alternatives come up. So you're forced to pay these ridiculous prices for drugs that you actually have. And government, the way the system is set up, it actually encourages this with the patents. And they do this supposedly to increase innovation and new drug research. While this is happening, the amount of money that is put into research is nowhere near justifiable for the amount of money that they are charging for these drugs. And the U.S. government does not have a national health program, therefore the companies make their own prices, and that is not how it works in other parts of the world. The diaphragm, or whatever it's called, costs $750 a pill now. In the UK, it is 66 cents a pill. So, literally, it is being made for pennies. Yeah.
So, a big question is who's affected by these issues and by the decisions made by Shkreli. So first of all, the biotech industry took a hit of 14%. The same weekend that Shkreli decided to hike the price, it clearly took a hit on the biotech industry. So not only, you gotta understand that not only the patients obviously got affected by this, obviously they took a bigger hit, but biotech company as well. And around 2,000 people in the US use diaphragm every year. And you might not think it's a huge number, but at the same time, you understand that this is 2,000 people that their lives depend on the medication. So it's not something that you can just put off, or there's another medication for it, and this is something that people's lives depend on. So it's the best cure for toxoplasmosis and those who have low immune systems. So if you have HIV, for example, this is a medication that you need in order to survive. There is no other option. And the annual treatment used to cost $1,130, and it went up to $63,000. So that's a huge. That's almost like a college tuition. So that's a huge change in pricing. So obviously, a lot of people were not able to afford this medication, even though their lives depended on it. And so as I said, yeah, like lives depend on. And also, this was a business strategy. Shkreli talked about how he purposely made this drug more expensive because people need to buy it. There's no option for them. They will do take whatever in their power in order to survive. So obviously, it's part of the business plan. And this also took an impact on the insurance company. The premiums went up. So people were also paying more money for this and got affected that way as well.
So the legal investigation and repercussions, they were so the U.S. government is investigating drug companies for alleged collusion and price fixing. So how Sal was talking about, other companies are starting to do this now. They're looking at, the government is investigating this, and they're also looking at making new legislation to change these practices. Shkreli faced no charges for these price hiking. He did nothing illegal, and so he faced no charges for that. In January 2015, Shkreli was investigated for involvement in securities fraud. In December 2015, he was arrested by the FBI on charges of security fraud, and then August 4th, 2017, Shkreli was convicted of 2 counts of securities fraud and 1 count of conspiracy to commit securities fraud. A lot of people, so he basically, what he did, he was running a micro Ponzi scheme with his companies, and he would open one company, and when that company was losing money, he would then start a new company and use investor dollars from that company to pay off his old debts. He just continued doing that, and eventually he's been caught.
Alright, so how is the problem solved? So first of all, it's very important to understand that realistically the problem wasn't solved 100%. There was no real impact on Shkreli, like direct impact, like he didn't go to jail for it. I mean, eventually he did, but for other causes. So what he did was legal, so there was no actual direct impact or not actually a solution to it. Obviously, doctors and politicians, as you saw Hillary Clinton on the South Show, they were angry. This took a lot of bad press, and this affected Shkreli over time, and eventually got him kicked off the CEO. But directly, they didn't really get, as I said, the problem didn't really get solved. The price eventually went 50% down to $375. You gotta understand this bill used to cost $13.50, went up to, and then now it's $375. This is also like a business strategy because he put it up to $750. People thought it was crazy. Then he brought it down. People didn't think it was as crazy. But when you really think about it, you're still paying an absurd amount of money for a medication that used to cost $13, $13.50 before.
Alright, so just when about a month after the price hike actually happened, the New York Times posted about the first real mainstream media coverage, posting this headline: the drug goes from $13.50 a tablet to $750 overnight. Right after that, Twitter blew up. People started tweeting at Martin Shkreli, just tweeting their disapproval of what he did. You see those two tweets on there. It says, "Hey, at Martin Shkreli, people have died in agony for years about this medication. You're trash." Hillary Clinton also tweeted out, Sal had up on the board, criticizing pharma companies for price hiking, implicitly talking about Shkreli's hiking down. Shkreli's own media presence has been really controversial in the past. He got his bail revoked on his securities trial because he posted a Facebook post saying, "I'll pay $5,000 for a lock of Hillary Clinton's hair," after he posted that tweet, and he still got his bail revoked. He also tweeted this. This was right after he had a hearing in front of Congress. He said, "Hard to accept that these imbeciles represent the people in our government." He's obviously was pretty outraged by the way they conducted the hearing. He was also on his phone in the hearing. This is a CBS video of it's happened the day after the New York Times article came out, and this is just an interview with him defending the president.
Aston, price hike, Don, good morning.
Good morning. The increase drew protests in the medical community from those concerned that many patients will no longer be able to afford the drug. But according to Turing CEO Martin Shkreli, the move is simply a smart business decision. Why was it necessary to raise the price of Daraprim so drastically?
Well, it depends on how you define so drastically, because the drug was unprofitable at the former price. So any company selling it would be losing money. And at this price, it's a reasonable profit, not excessive at all.
Daraprim was developed in 1953 as a treatment for toxoplasmosis, an infection caused by a parasite. It comes from eating undercooked meat or drinking contaminated water and affects those with compromised immune systems, like AIDS and cancer patients. When Turing Pharmaceuticals raised the price of Daraprim to $750 per tablet last month, the average cost of treatment for patients rose from about $1,130 to $63,000. For certain patients, the cost can run as high as $634,000.
This particular drug is used by a small but vulnerable group of patients, so you see how greedy this move looks.
Yeah, I can see how it looks greedy, but I think there's a lot of altruistic properties to it.
Altruistic?
Absolutely.
In what way?
Yeah, so one example is that this is a disease where there hasn't been one pharmaceutical company focused on it for 70 years. We are now a company that is dedicated to the treatment and cure of toxoplasmosis. And with these new profits, we can spend all of that upside on these patients who sorely need a new drug, in my opinion.
Patients shouldn't be taxed and charged for future research and development. Patients should pay for the drug they are getting and what they need in the situation that they are.
So, as you can see by the guy in the last little bit, he's an oncologist that works with CBS as an analyst. His view as a medical professional is that this is outrageous. He calls it later in the video predatory practice. He's victimizing people and he's valuing someone's life over another just because they have money to afford this drug. After all this hit mainstream media, every major news outlet, CBS, Fox, CNN, they all ran stories on this. The Guardian ran a huge piece on it. It took a real negative bias because of the public's opinion on the price hike, and it was very much like criticizing Martin Shkreli for what he did.
Alright, so Turing was where Shkreli raised the price of Daraprim, and that was the most drastic price hike, so it got his attention. And shortly after that, Shkreli was forced to step down as the CEO, and it completely ruined the reputation of Turing Pharmaceuticals, and they were forced to outsource all the drugs that they were trying to fund the R&D with from the price hike. So that just created more expenses for them without getting any real profit. And because of the price hike, Turing was viewed as the general public by everything that was wrong with big pharma in the world today. And okay, Calavirus was another drug company that Shkreli was in charge of, and he tried to raise the price of another parasitic infection drug, from the $60,000 price range to the $100,000 price range, and, before he could do that, Calabas, filed bankruptcy because Shkreli got arrested, and, so after that, the company changed its name to Humanigen, and here's a headline, and they even vowed to no crazy drug prices anymore because they wanted to distance themselves as far from Shkreli as they possibly could. And with Retrophin, Shkreli raised the price of Viola, and they sued Shkreli for $65 million. That had more to do with his security fraud. And they said they fired him because of fluctuations in stock price, but that was caused by the raise in drug price because of the public backlash. So, Turing Pharmaceuticals is a private company, so I couldn't really get the effect on the stock price for that company. But this is the Nasdaq Biotech Index of the day the day the price raise was announced for Daraprim. And this is the tweet that Hillary Clinton made, and this is all in one day. So the Nasdaq Biotech Index fell by 2.7% just from the price raise of Daraprim. And this is Retrophin. So right here is where Shkreli announced the price raise of Viola, and right here is where they fired him, and so it went out after that. And this is Humanigen, which is formerly Calabas, and so this is where Shkreli immediately brought the company in, and this is when he was fired. So it's really never recovered from the bad news he got because of Shkreli trying to raise the price and his securities fraud.
Alright, so our opinion is there was not really a just outcome of this. As you can see in the videos, the pictures, Shkreli's always smiling, he doesn't really care, it shows he has kind of an attitude toward everything. Didn't really affect him at all, I would say, and still the price stayed at 2,500% higher than it was before, so we didn't really see a lot of change in the pricing. A lot of people who got affected by this are still dealing with this problem, and he never showed any type of remorse overall through all the pricing. Even after he went to jail, you could see him smiling when he was taken off to jail. Like, never showed any compassion towards the people.
Questions? Who wants to start? Bo?
What were the immediate consequences?
Wait, can you repeat the question?
What were the immediate consequences of the price gouge?
So the immediate consequences were that my company took 14%, and during the day took 2%, price went down. The stock also, a lot of people couldn't afford the medication, had to look for money or other type of solutions to pay for this drug. So that was the immediate impact on people, and a lot of bad press, a lot of reactions from doctors and politicians as well.
Just to build off that too, another immediate reaction too was not only just affecting like the actual company itself, but affecting the consumers as well and influencing not just the consumers but other people in the biotech industry as well. So it really did kind of affect not just the company but everyone that was participating in the company, whether you're the vendor or the consumer. So like I said, immediately insurance premiums spiked up, even adding to the expenses of the consumer as well. So it wasn't just the reputations or the stock value of the companies, it was both the vendor and consumer relationship that was negatively impacted.
What led Shkreli to see pharma products as just another stock?
So Shkreli actually really got his beginnings in the stock market industry, and he really made a name for himself there. He was really just kind of a whiz when it came to stocks. He was very good at what he did. And then when he started getting into the pharmaceutical industry, he carried that same attitude with him, and continued to treat pharmaceuticals as if they were any other stock, as opposed to something that people need to survive.
sorry, I just wanna add on something. When asked, in the interview, if he felt any remorse for this, he said, well, I wanted to raise the price higher, but my investor said I couldn't. He wanted to raise it even higher than the 5,000% increase, and, he chose no remorse, which wasn't wrong.
How did Shkreli's background affect his view of ethics in the farm industry?
So, as we mentioned before, he's had a long history in the stock market and having a presence on Wall Street. Actually, when he was 17 years old, he was working for a hedge fund, and then shortly after that, he taught himself biology, which led him to go into pharmaceutical sales. And he really doesn't have the ethics. He separates his business from his ethics, and he is a master opportunist as well, as we've seen with many different investments across the board. And he saw this just as another opportunity. And the big problem that we have with it, and as well as politicians and the people in the healthcare, is that these are need-based products. They're not just like buying a car or like buying a TV. Like they are different than other stocks, but he doesn't see it like that. And technically, in the SEC or the SEC, it is the same. I mean, they all are at the end of the day goods, but the difference is that people's lives depend on them, and that's where you hear the media coverage that predatory term is that he's taking advantage of these need-based products and treating them as if they're like a computer from Apple. So that's really the main problem too, is that he separates ethics from his business, and that he is a keen opportunist as well.
Just to add on to that, he grew up very poor. He was the son of immigrants, and he was really a self-made man. He really had nothing, and he pulled himself up by the bootstraps, and educated himself, and he really just kind of took that. He was really embodied the American dream, and then once he made it, he turned around and kind of spit in his face. So.
Describe the characteristics of Shkreli as farmer bro, and why has he chosen to embrace this persona?
So some characteristics of Shkreli as farmer bro, you can see in all the pictures that we have, he's either smiling or in the interview he wasn't really defending it like solely. He was just like, I did it because my investor said so. He like really does not show any remorse, and all the tweets and stuff about Hillary Clinton's hair, the same stuff about Congress, he really just like sees himself as somebody who really doesn't care. And he like has enough money and enough power in his eyes that he can do whatever he wants. And so he has fully embraced that persona into it. Like he felt like he just jacked his prices up because he wants to make money. It's not separating like he separated his conscience from like his business decisions, and he didn't think about how it would impact the people who take these pills 15 times a day.
Just to add on to that, there's an example how he just doesn't show remorse. One of the guys in Retrofit who got in trouble in a hearing, actually, he wrote a letter to him saying how he was going to do everything in his power to make sure him and his family were homeless in the next few years. So, just kind of
Illustrating.
So how can this problem be prevented in the future?
So the government really needs to change the way our healthcare system is set up. In other countries, it's completely different. The government regulates prices, and things like this never happen. As I said before, the pill that costs $750 costs 66 cents in the United Kingdom, which is absolutely ridiculous. People have to take these pills 10, 15 times a day, and our government, this big scandal has really kind of ignited a fire for Congress, and they're working on new legislation, but it's probably going to be a while before we see any real significant changes.
Yeah, and so I think my perspective is that government should get more involved in this type of things. I think there should be like a percentage of gain a person could get from this type of medication. The people that depend on to separate them kind of from like a business view and more onto like a healthcare view and like how to help people, not how to get as much money from people.
That concludes our questions. So feedback for the group as they're, you want to log out of your presentation, please? Who wants to start?
Arlene, I think they did a really good job with including the audience in their presentation and engaging us throughout the whole thing.
Thank you.
Your guys' question section did a good job adding on to the numbers.
Other feedback, please.
I thought you did a good job of like mastering your topic and showing that you could like, you really did your research and you know about the before.
Good. What else?
And along with that, how you guys didn't just like read off the slides, but you incorporate all of your own information as well.
Any other comments for the team? Great. I'll let you, please finish filling out your feedback forms.
What do we write for our?
I need one of these to write on for your group, so assess
I have
yourself. You need another,
Wait, one from all of us, or?
no, one
Oh, one of
for your whole team. So you guys just presented, so you can just have a little conversation. How do you think we did with each one of those topics? Makes sense? Thank you.
Pretty much one here.
So, would I give them time for?
What was he gonna do? Give me another minute.
I'd say.
How's your question?
Cause we went.
I'll have to turn in the context or something.
I literally circled one multi-choice on the front there was like, what's a, I don't know what your current liability or maybe long term, I just circled like must be paid in full. I think that's the only one I have to.